Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to the Monday after a weird weekend of football. Let's just get right to it and let's not hold back anything. Um, Saturday night, Dallas was gifted a victory against the Lions. Now, I said going into this game that I thought the Lions were going to lose. I thought that they weren't ready to be able to live up to success. What I mean by that is when they're expected to go in and have a winning performance, that they're able to do that. They play better at home, and they also play better when, I don't want to say their backs are against the wall, but when they're not expected to do anything, when they're the underdogs. And they didn't have a great game in Dallas. Jared Goff made a lot of mistakes. Their defense played great, minus a safety turning into a 98-yard touchdown, which is ridiculous. But that's the kind of thing that happens sometimes when you have a team that's still climbing. And like I said, I think that they're a year too early for us to talk about them as, being there in the end. But what happened to the end of that game is total bullshit. And I don't want to hear this fucking shit that the ref was looking at number 70 and talking to number 68. He looked straight at the dude and acknowledged him. And the reason that I say the NFL players are a bunch of bitches is for this reason. First off, I don't think more than 10% of NFL players actually care if they win or lose. I think that they're just there to make money. I don't think these guys give a shit the way that fans give a shit. But if I'm one of the 10 or 15% of players on that team that actually gives a shit about winning, I'm not letting any post-game press conferences happen. And these guys are up there like, oh, I'd like to say something, but I don't want to get in trouble and I don't want to get fined. And that's the problem with the NFL, is because these players are too afraid of saying how they feel. And the NFL is just going to come out and say like, well, we have, it's not our fault. These refs made a mistake, but we're not going to admit that they made a mistake. That's, and what is the ref's punishment? The refs should be fined. It's not that they shouldn't be able to referee in playoff games and make more money. They should take money out of their pocket. But like, you guys had a fucking call that changed the trajectory of the entire conference. We're not paying you, and you're fired. But they don't do that because the NFL has no integrity and won't admit that they're wrong. And then they punish the players for calling them out for being wrong. And if the players don't come together and say like, we're not going to have this bullshit. If I was a Lions player, I'm headed to where they have the podium for the press conference, and I'm telling the reporters, you have 30 seconds to get out of this room. The only people you should be asking questions to is Roger Goodell and the officiating crew on why they just fucked us out of this game. But that's not what happens. Dallas didn't look particularly good either. And like I said, Dallas is overrated. They're a fraudulent team. They're going to get the number 2 seed, but they're not getting past San Francisco unless Brock Purdy gets hurt. And there's other teams in that conference that they should fear, including the Lions going back in there, and the Lions just proved they could have won. I don't think it was smart for Campbell to go for 2, but I kind of understand why he was doing it. It's late enough in the season that maybe half of an extra quarter is something you don't need to put on your team. Maybe we don't need to be going into overtime, and we'll just be happy with winning the division. And we already know we can come here and win, so we don't need to prove it now. We can just save ourselves and not run into a bad injury. And I'm going to get to that in a second. So then yesterday, the Eagles go out and look like complete garbage. I don't even understand what the fucking offensive coordinator is trying to do with the Eagles. It seems as though 9/10 of their offensive plays are either Hurts is going to run the ball or they're going to throw a quick screen somewhere. What the fuck are they doing? It's like they're trying to tank their season. Maybe they have a little bit of the hangover from playing all the extra games last season and then they're starting to fade. But they've completely collapsed and they're going to be one and done in the playoffs, for sure. So whether they go to Tampa or they end up going to Detroit, wherever they go, they're going to lose. Dallas isn't getting the number 1 seed, so Dallas is going to have to play, and they better hope they don't get somebody that can come up and rough them up. But right now, unfortunately, Dallas is in control of the NFC East, so we'll see how this plays out. Moving on from that, the AFC East. I said Baltimore was going to destroy Miami, and Baltimore did it after flying from the West Coast to the East Coast after a Monday night game. And they put a throttling on Miami, just like I said they would. And Buffalo went in. And once again, this is what people need to worry about Buffalo for, even though I started this podcast saying they're poorly coached and overrated. They're winning ugly. And they're winning ugly against bad teams that they would normally lose to because for some reason they play ugly against bad teams. I think they're going to go to Miami next week and throttle them. I think what happened to Miami yesterday is giving them pause. I think Buffalo already knows how to play them well, and I think they're going to look at what the Ravens did and try to basically mimic that. And watching that game, it was like Baltimore knew exactly what was coming every time. And Miami could keep it a little bit close, but you see, as soon as the pressure's on, as soon as they gave up that 75-yarder to Flowers, it was everything got inverted on its head. And the pressure came on, and next thing you know, they're down 35-13. They make it a 2-score game, and Baltimore's like, all right, I've had enough of you, and puts them away. So the Miami fans are going to be on suicide watch again. This time they can't blame it on referees because Baltimore was getting penalized left and right, and it's almost like Baltimore doesn't even care. They're like, we're just so much better than you. Or put it as a 1st and 25. We're still gonna go out there and get a first down. So next week Miami and Buffalo play. Winner gets the division. Winner gets the number 2 seed. That's going to be exciting. Dallas is going to have to play, but that game with the Commanders will be over by halftime. Because the Commanders aren't any good. Speaking of the Commanders, it was nice to get, San Francisco back in the win column. But I was talking earlier about the Lions and maybe saving themselves from having to go to overtime and this late in the season. And look what happens in Miami. Bradley Chubb, non-contact injury. And if you watch the replay of that game on the NFL app, you can hear Bradley Chubb scream in the middle of that play and just lay on the sidelines, lay on the ground screaming. Howard had a calf injury too. You never know the extent of that. So it looks like sometimes maybe not playing that extra half quarter of overtime is a smart decision. I said that Will Levis starting was a bad idea because that offensive line is just a liability to the quarterback, and he's going to get hurt, and he got hurt. So Mike Vrabel, who should have been fired after last season, is sitting here costing his team a potential future quarterback because he's playing him behind a Swiss cheese of an offensive line, and I can't figure out why that's happening. So got some exciting games coming into week 18. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I'll get some predictions out for that. Nothing else as far as important news going on there in the NFL or in mixed martial arts yet. It's a couple of weeks before we have our first UFCs, but this is going to be a really good year of mixed martial arts, and the NFL playoffs are going to be interesting to see how they come about moving forward here. So, till next time, stay frosty, motherfuckers, and I'll see you in the shorts.